Hi everyone, welcome to Things Lucy Reads. I'm Luce and this is the vlog for Big Mac Chooses My TBR. You will notice by the title that I have renamed it. I'm still not completely sold on this title. I think it works well as a visual pun, but I'm not too sure how you would actually verbalize it. To burger? I don't know. I'll workshop it a little bit more. I don't have much to say in terms of introducing this vlog, except that I knew very early on with one of the books, and you'll immediately know which one it is as soon as you start watching, that it wasn't going to work for me, but I persevered with reading it anyway and ended up, surprising no one, absolutely hating it, but not for the reasons that I initially thought I would hate it. So please be aware that this vlog involves a lot of me lying to myself, trying to convince myself that if I just keep reading, it will be better. Maybe if it's not better in that book, it will at least be better in the next one. Well, spoiler alert, I never got to the next one. And I did end up replacing one of the other books on my TBR with a new one for reasons which I will explain in the vlog. Even though I had already vetoed one of my picks in the TBR video, I decided to do it again because it's my challenge and I make the rules. And then that ended up working out really, really well for me, and I ended up absolutely loving that book. So the vlog does end on a high note, but you do just have to get through the first part of it, much like I did. So that's all I have to say in terms of introduction. Hopefully watching the first part of the vlog is more enjoyable for you than actually reading that book was for me. Without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so an update on this little TBR experiment. I'm up to page 103 of Tales of the City. I have been listening to this predominantly on audio while I drive to and from work and while I play Animal Crossing. I literally had to Google, is Anna Madrigal trans? Because at this point, there's really no indication that there's more than one queer character in it, except for the vibes. The good news is that Anna Madrigal is a trans woman, which is incredible, and I love her, but at the moment, it's very much a lot of straight people and their drama, and I'm not really interested in it. There's the main character, Marianne, and she works for this company, and she's friends with the son of the boss, who's married to this woman, and they don't have a happy marriage, and her parents, the boss of the company, and his wife, they don't have a happy marriage. That CEO has just met Anna Madrigal. It seems like they're gonna have a romance, but there's one character so far who's explicitly gay, and that's Michael. That's fine. And his roommate Mona is giving me like lesbian vibes, but so far she thinks she's straight, so don't know very much about that. But yeah, I'm really hoping that this picks up for me in this book, or at least the next one, because at the moment it's just a lot of, as I said, straight people that I don't care about. And I would like to know more about, for example, Anna Madrigal without her relationship to this gross old man, and without any of the other, I don't know. I'm just a little disappointed. I was promised a queer found family, and what I have is heterosexual nonsense. Hopefully, at least half of these characters that are currently presenting as straight will be queer in some way. Hopefully. It's not unenjoyable, it's just not what I expected, and I don't know how I feel about it. Just hoping it gets queerer in short order, because I said in the TBR that I have the whole series. I don't. I have the first 6 books, but there's actually 9, which I found out like 2 days ago. One of those books is about Anna Madrigal, so maybe I'll just read that one. At the moment I don't love it, but I also don't hate it, so we'll see how it goes from here, I guess. So it's been about a week since I filmed the last clip for this vlog, and I'm now on page 169 of Tales of the City, which is about 62% of the way through. I still don't quite know how I feel about it, although my suspicions about Mona were correct. At the moment, it's a lot of heterosexual relationship drama, it's a lot of rich people drama, it's a lot of cheating, because like just a lot of things are happening that I don't care to hear about or read about, and the cheating is one of them. And the other thing is that there's a whole lot of body image talk, what people are eating, what people are not eating, whether they've lost weight, whether they've put on weight. I've just finished reading about a specific character going to a fat farm, his words, not mine, and I just don't love it. I don't hate it. I quite enjoy listening to it. Frances McDormand is incredible. We are getting to the part of the book where all of the characters are starting to come together, and you're seeing the connections between everyone, not just the handful of core characters that live in the house at Barbary Lane, but their workmates and their boss and their boyfriend and their workmate's wife's gynecologist, that kind of thing. So that's interesting. It finally finding out what everyone is joined by these threads. And so I'm interested to see if they're all going to become like one large supportive friend group, or if things are going to absolutely implode. But I'm not going to know until I get to the end of the book. I will read the rest of it and then decide definitively what I feel about it and if I'm going to read on. It's going to be a little bit sad if I decide that I don't want to read on, because this is, you know, such a classic of queer literature. But just because something is a classic doesn't mean it's universally liked or that it's going to speak to every single queer person. It's enjoyable to read. It's very light-hearted and surprisingly low stakes. I did not expect there to be so little, like, frankly, homophobia for a book written in the late 70s, but there's almost none of it, which I'm surprised at but pleased about. Okay, so I finished Tales of the City and I gave it 2 stars, and I will not be reading on with this series. I liked the portrayal of Anna Madrigal. Could have done without the detective storyline or the cheating storylines, the many cheating storylines. But other than that, I thought that Anna Madrigal was very well written and very well represented. In terms of trans rep, the book's great. It's everything else that I have a problem with. There was this one specific character that was written to be a love interest for Marianne, and at the beginning you think he's just a regular normal guy, refreshing in a sea of chauvinists and men who only want sex. And then eventually you find out that he's not just a regular likable normal guy, he's a child pornographer. And at that point the Marianne denounces him, but up until that point he was written sympathetically so that we would like him, and I did like him, and I just really don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that, and I have absolutely no interest in reading on with the rest of the series. But I will tell you my theory. I think that probably Beecham and Dee Dee get divorced and end up with other people. Beecham probably ends up with a man. Don't know if Dee Dee is also going to be bisexual, and I'll never find out. And I also think that Anna Madrigal is Mona's other biological parent who abandoned her and her mother when she was a baby. I think that that's Anna Madrigal, but I don't care enough about that to find out. So that one unfortunately was a miss for me, and I know that a lot of people love it, and apart from all of these things, it was quaint and it was likable, but I could not take the child pornographer and all of the cheating and just the casual, insidious racism. Oh, that's the other thing. There's a character who performs blackface to further her career. Pretends to be black when she is in fact as white as a cloud. And then there's the fact that Dee Dee sleeps with a delivery boy from a Chinese supermarket, and then later on tells her little women's group or whatever that she was raped by him. And I think that they all understand that she's just saying that because she was kind of pressured into framing it that way, and also they understand that it was just that she cheated on her husband. But then she gets pregnant and she's talking to her friend about it, and the friend's like, why don't you just keep the baby and pass it off as your husband's? And she's like, I can't, it would be the wrong color. And then points to a daffodil because the father of the baby was Chinese. And these are just things that we're supposed to just sweep under the rug. My opinion of Armistead Maupin has lowered considerably, and I don't think that this series needs to be taken into the future and continue to be upheld as a queer classic. I think we should put it in the bin, to be quite honest. I also today finished reading Through the Woods by Emily Carroll, which I also really enjoyed. I was right in my TBR when I said that I didn't think that this book was queer, but the author is, so I'm still going to count it. I rated it 4 stars when I read it for the first time, and I rated it 4 stars again. I think I had a better time understanding it this time around, and I was more prepared for it to be short stories as opposed to one complete narrative. It was very enjoyable to read it the second time around, just these little bites of a ghost story or a horror story. It remains absolutely beautiful. Let me show you some of these pages. And I'm just a little bit sad that Emily Carroll still hasn't released any other graphic novels like this that are written and illustrated by her. If she ever does release a graphic novel like this again, I definitely will pick it up. And I'm really glad that I've continued to hold on to this and that I gave it another chance, because I think I enjoyed it even more this time around, even though I rated it the same as I did last time. But it was really good. If you want something just a little bit chilling, a little bit gory, and definitely pick this up. And I've started the third book for this challenge, but I don't know if I'm actually going to read the whole thing. It's Dorian by Will Self. I'm on page 7 and already I have hit the line. Turning this way and that, he seemed to take a particular satisfaction in observing the white rheum that had gathered at the corners of his cruel mouth like sea froth on anfractuous rocks. And I mentioned in my TBR that the only thing I remembered of this book was that Henry Wotton liked to do this and get off the white stuff all the time. We're on page 7, he's done it. But even after 7 pages, I can tell that this book is just so absolutely up itself. And I don't know if I have the patience to sit through it for 300 pages for a second time. We'll see where we go, but I am highly, highly anticipating that this one will be a DNF. But I'll read a few more pages and see how I go, I guess. So I haven't read any further than 7 pages of this book, but instead of just persevering with this and getting more and more like exasperated with it, I'm actually going to put it down because I'm still reading it cold turkey. I still haven't read The Picture of Dorian Gray, so I'm going to remove it from this challenge and not read it at the moment. And I'm also not going to put it back in the jar because I want to read the original Picture of Dorian Gray first, and then I might be able to appreciate this a little bit more. So I'm sorry if anyone was looking forward to hearing me talk or complain about this book, but that will not be happening in this video. I'm going to read Dorian Gray at some point, and then I will revisit this as a retelling of it with full knowledge of the original story and able to appreciate the beats and the character decisions that are made in this more than I would if I just read it again without actually knowing the original story. So because I am deciding not to read that one, even though I've already picked a book out for this batch and decided not to read it, I'm going to pick out another book from here and read that instead. So I need a red and yellow piece of paper. I think I will go with this one. Okay, all right. The book that I've just picked out instead to replace Dorian is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I bought this back when it was first in its heyday and everyone was reading it and loving it, but I didn't read it because at that time Trump was still the president, and I felt like I would just be filled with existential despair if I tried to read this while Trump was still president, because this takes place in an alternate US where in 2016 a woman won the election, and probably the world ends up in a much better place than we are in at the moment. But now that Trump is no longer president, not that I have any opinions about Biden necessarily being better. I don't live in America. I just watch from the outside going, what the fuck? I watch from the inside my own politics and go, what the fuck? So, you know. So, I will be reading this one. Hopefully I will enjoy it, and I will get back to you with my thoughts. Wow, this is certainly a hairstyle. This is what I get for washing my hair and going to bed immediately. It's Saturday. I started reading Red, White and Royal Blue yesterday, or the day before really, but yesterday I got through half of it. I decided that I was going to redo several parts of my Animal Crossing island, and then I decided that I was going to move one of those things again and install a wind farm instead. So I played it for about 7 hours and got through half of the audiobook in that time. Please excuse I literally just got out of bed, but my parents are in the kitchen having breakfast, so this is the only time I can do this and not be heard. I fucking love this. I was having some real issues with the fact that the second prince has the same name as the second prince in real life. Like Harry, Prince Harry's real name is Henry, but I guess no one calls him Henry, so that's okay. And also his brother Prince Philip would be the Prince of Wales and not Henry. But I'm not going to like dwell on that because this is an alternate universe version of our world. These characters don't exist, obviously, and like these events never happened. So alternate universe fic rules apply. Pretty much anything goes. In this version of the world, the Prince of Wales obviously is the second prince, and I wish that they'd been like friends in person a little more. Like they went on that first initial like press tour and then they started texting each other, and that's where the relationship developed. But I would have liked them to be at an event and like friends in person in real life together a little more. Very early on when they were on the press tour and they were on that talk show, the vibes I was getting from this there's this fic for BBC Sherlock, which was back when I was in the fandom and still on Tumblr. It was the most popular and most well-known and widely read fic of the entire fandom. And the author of it actually went viral not that long ago on Twitter for a thread about universal basic income, which was weird for my Tumblr and post-Tumblr lives to collide like that. Like life really comes at you fast. Anyway, there was this fic and it was called Performance in a Leading Role. Sherlock and John were both actors and I think that they were up for the same Oscar. And they were like rivals, but then they, you know, got to know each other and then they were in this relationship and they both came out and it was this whole big thing, and that one of the chapters was like them on Ellen. So like that was all I could think of. It was just sort of almost an out-of-body experience. Very, very strange. So when I was listening to the audiobook, I did actually like pause it at one point and pick up the actual paper book when they were having that email exchange, because the narrator kept reading out like their email address and the date and the time and all of that, and I was just like, I cannot sit here and listen to him say their email addresses one more time. And then before when they were texting for the first time and Henry's name in Alex's phone was something like HRH Prince Dickhead poop emoji. Every time he got a text, the narrator read out HRH Prince Dickhead poop emoji. It's so funny. The audiobook is good, but I think I enjoy the paper version more. And it was just that reading the audiobook while I was playing Animal Crossing was more accessible for my brain yesterday. I just couldn't. I wanted to sit down and read the paper book. My brain was like, no, we're not gonna do that. You can't, no. If you do that, we're not gonna concentrate. And I was like, fuck. Anyway, I might listen to some more of the audiobook today, because doing that while I play Animal Crossing is a little bit easier on old mate Brian up here. Yeah, that's where I am on this. Maybe it's just a case of I'm reading it at the absolute perfect time for me, but if so, then that's great. It's great to read a book at the perfect time for you. That's, you know, the ideal. Sometimes you read a book and you're like, I'm going to enjoy this better later, or I would have enjoyed this better earlier, but no, this one, perfect. So we're coming to the end of this vlog because I very nearly finished this book. I'm currently on page 314 and there's only 103 pages left to go. And I was thinking last night, it's so interesting to be reading this several years after it was first published, because this came out in 2019 and I keep getting, like, I haven't finished it yet, but I keep getting the feeling that like Henry might leave the royal family in order to be with Alex. And I was thinking about how if that happens, that probably in 2019 seemed like a really far-fetched thing for someone to do. But then in early 2020, Harry and Meghan did it. So it just occurred to me that I'm reading this so sure that that's what's going to happen because it's already happened in real life. And I'm not going to be surprised if that doesn't happen, if they find some other way around it. But it's just weird that the context of royal life between when this book was written and published and people were mostly first reading it and now is so different. And it was just really interesting to realize that back when this first got big, no one had done that before. That's just what I've been thinking about. It's been a hectic couple of weeks. It's involved 2 COVID tests, probably gonna have to get another one because my mom went to the supermarket yesterday, and it seems that the supermarket is always an exposure site. What can you do about it? It's the supermarket. Had my first COVID shot. I got Pfizer. it was fine. My arm hurt. I was really tired for the first day and I haven't been sleeping fantastically. Like, it's taken a long time for me to get to sleep, but other than that I've been fine. But like, this book has been like perfect to pull me through this, and whenever I've been feeling really terrible, even if I haven't necessarily picked this up, it's been there ready for me if I need it, which has been really, really nice, and I have appreciated having that, and I just really appreciate that it exists in the first place. And I am a little like apprehensive to actually finish this, but only because I never want it to end, because it's just so lovely. Probably the next time I check in will be when I finished, and it will be the end of the vlog, so I'll see you then. And I have no words. I have no words. I loved it so much. And not being from the UK or America, I can't speak to how believable or plausible it is, but I also don't really care. It was wonderful. Henry did not end up leaving the royal family, which I'm actually glad about, but I also do feel like maybe if this had been written after 2020, that would have been floated as an option, that he could just step back from being an active royal, but because no one had really done it in modern times when this book was written and published, perhaps Casey just didn't think it was an option. I really appreciated that this book was as cynical about the monarchy as it was about the US government. Like, it questioned a lot of times about whether things were being done because they were the right thing to do, or whether they were being done because it would look good in the press. And I just did really appreciate that. I did not like when the Queen was threatened with, at one point someone basically said, "I will tell the press that you are too senile to still be the Queen, and I will take your throne from you." And I didn't really appreciate that very much, but I did appreciate that the character who said it finally started to take an active role in their own life for the first time in the whole book. But yeah, other than that, it was exactly what I needed in this moment. I love it. I'm a little bit too close to it at the moment to say anything more about it really, but we'll be talking about it in my wrap up when I am a little further away from it and can think about it a little bit more objectively, but keep an eye out for that. That's the end of this vlog. All things considered, it has been successful. I am a little bit sad that I did not enjoy Tales of the City. That's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Not every classic is going to work for every person. Through the Woods I really enjoyed rereading again, and enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time, and I'm glad that I was able to revisit that so soon again as well. And what was the other book that I read? Oh, Dorian. That was right, and I didn't read it because I read this instead. There will be another one of these coming fairly soon. I have already pulled the books out and filmed the TBR, but when that video goes up, it will not be a TBR and a vlog. It will be all one video. That should be up end of the month or so. You will have also noticed I have renamed it. I might be playing with titles for a little while, but I feel like this one works better than constantly flirting with being sued by a giant international conglomerate. So let me know what you think, or if you have any suggestions for a better name, definitely drop them in the comments too. But yeah, thank you for coming along on this ride with me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've read any of these books, feel free to let me know what you thought. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't have anything specifically to say, as always, leave an emoji heart in your favorite color, or any other emoji that you feel like dropping in the comments. The rainbow flag maybe, whatever you feel like. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.